Let's welcome in Uncle B, Blaine Fowler, to the conversation now, specifically with expectations and how to exceed them if you're BYU football or basketball in year one of the Big 12. Blaine, let's go ahead and just start right there. You can put on your blue goggles for a little bit, but what would exceeding expectations look like for BYU football specifically in year one of Big 12 play?
Well, I don't have any blue goggles. I mean, I can put on my reading glasses so I can see things a little bit clearer. But hey, I'm getting old, you guys. I can see a deer on the side of a mountain from 5 miles away, but ask me to read something this close, I got a problem. So to me, the goal, guys, is to just get bowl eligible in year one. And so anything that is above 6 wins, to me, on the season as a whole, is above expectations. Now, having said that, I've gone through this schedule, front ways and sideways and slant ways and however other ways Willy Wonka says the Wonkavator goes. But I can see them getting 7 wins and maybe even 8. Now how do they do that? Well, I feel like they could get wins as we're looking at the schedule. Cincinnati, Iowa State, Texas Tech, right? At Kansas, at West Virginia, I think are the most possible wins on the road. So there's 5 wins in conference. And then let's say you lose to Oklahoma, at Texas, at Oklahoma State, and at TCU. You play 3 really difficult teams on the road. So you go 5-4 in league. That means that in non-conference, you're going to beat Sam Houston and Southern Utah. Can you go get a win against Arkansas, a team that I felt they should have beaten last year with a new defense and different schemes and a new quarterback? You get that win, all of a sudden you're 8 wins and 4 losses. Say you lose to Arkansas, or you beat Arkansas and you lose to Texas Tech or Kansas on the road. You're still in that 7-win realm. So I feel like 6 should be the standard. Just get bowl eligible first year in the league. But I will not be surprised if they get to 7. To me, that would be overachieving. If they get to 8, to me, that's a phenomenal first year in the Big 12. If by chance they get to 8, and I think that's a pretty high standard for them to get to 8 with the schedule that they're playing.
With that said, would anything under 500, well, I guess in the regular season, let's not include a bowl game. If BYU gets to a bowl game and loses 6 and 7, you still got to a bowl game. Would anything under 500 in the regular season, would that be below expectation? Is the expectation every year, no matter what, make a bowl game?
To me, the minimum expectation that you have to go into every season with is that you get 6 wins and you get to a bowl. And I don't care if you're in the Big 12 or the Pac-12 or what league you're in. That's the bar for BYU. They're missing some pieces from last year, but I think they've added some pieces, and I think they're doing some things that should be the expectation. I don't think any of us should be okay with them being below 500, even in this new league. I think it's for basketball, it's a bigger jump because they've been playing in the WCC and they're moving to the best basketball conference in the country. Although SEC might argue with that right now, but in football, this decade of independence where they've been playing P5 schools on a regular basis, especially the last couple of years, I think football's in a much better position to understand the grind of how to manage a P5 schedule, and I think a bare minimum should be 6 wins as an expectation.
Blaine Fowler's with us on BYU Sports Nation. Blaine, Jarom and I were just discussing certain aspects of the style of play, schematics, statistics, and we kind of centered in on the defense because it was porous in a lot of areas last year. We pointed out takeaways, sacks, points per play given up. What would exceeding expectations look like from just style of play and what you're going to see from BYU on the field, not just in the win-loss column?
I think in the Big 12, because the offenses are so good, that it's about being disruptive. And, Spencer, you just brought up this idea that we didn't see a lot of interceptions and fumbles forced and those kinds of things, defensive points, right? Because I think managing points in this league are going to be tough. I mean, these teams just go out and score points. And I think BYU offensively, I've been watching Keaton early on. Cade is actually spinning the ball pretty good too. But you add the addition of Aiden Robbins at running back, you get a healthy Miles Davis back. Some of the guys that came on at the end of the year, you start to trust. I think this is an offense that can score in that league, and it's a league that's built. So I think the offense can keep pace. So the difference maker is a defense that's disruptive enough to give your offense additional possessions, because that's how you win games in this league. And I just watched the style of play through spring ball where they're much more aggressive with blitz packages. D linemen are, I'm not going to say it's just a true one gap assignment because they play through a player to that one gap, but they're going to allow them to be a little more aggressive. They're going to do things where they may give up a few big plays, but I think we're going to see more disruption in what they're doing. And I think that is a perfect timing for a fit for going to in this new league, where disruption, forcing turnovers, extra possessions for your offense, so your offense can score more, is the way you win in this league.
Let's talk men's hoops. We were hoping, BYU kind of mails it in non-conference. A couple tough games, obviously, but you need to gather some wins. And then in league, it's probably something like 6-12 would be pretty good. Oklahoma, as we looked up during the segment, was 5-13 in last place. 5 wins would be pretty good. Granted, you bring in Houston, a 1 seed, and Cincinnati, UCF, certainly opportunities there. BYU certainly looks like an opportunity for most teams, but the hope is that the Cougars can quickly kind of get out of this 4-year trend of becoming less efficient as a team. What do you expect, and what would be above expectation?
Well, I think the mark that you guys have set as 6 in conference is probably fair. More importantly than wins and losses to me, I would like to see them compete and not finish in a 14-team league in the last 3. Okay, so can they be 10, 11 in that league? And what that translates to in terms of wins, hard to know. Like this year, that league is so ridiculous, right? That it would have been easy to be in the bottom. Hey, frankly, I think St. Mary's would have been in the bottom 2 in the Big 12 this year, and they're very good. Really? Right? Yeah. I think Gonzaga, just because of experience and they've been there, would have competed in the top 5 or 4 in that league, and they're showing that in the tournament. But St. Mary's on a day in, day out basis in the grind in that league, I feel like they would have been in the bottom 4 of that league. Which is crazy that I'm even saying that, because they're really good. So that gives you a sense of how much respect I have for that league. And now you bring Houston into that league. You guys watching them in the tournament?
They're awesome.
For Pete's sake, it looks like a bunch of NBA guys playing in college. They're that skilled. So to me, it's like not necessarily a win total, but it's can you stay out of the bottom of that league in your very, very first year? It's going to take a little bit to build. Hey, to do that, guys, if they're going to finish 10th or 11th in that league, they need some pieces. And I think they can go get those pieces. I think they need to go get a couple of bigs, right? That they're going to have to help out and give them depth to allow Foose to play at the 4 a little bit more. I think they need another big wing that can shoot. I think they're getting some guys back. I think Trevin Nell is going to be a big competitor that's going to be able to knock down shots consistently. And I also think the 3 freshmen that got back from the missions last year, they will make a quantum leap. So Dallin Hall and Richie Saunders, and then Toulston will start to weigh in with his talent after being home. I think those 3 will make a giant leap, and people will go, oh, wow, these guys are better than we thought they were. So that'll be great, right? But there's some pieces still missing that they're going to have to go get in the transfer portal that will make that difference and allow them to finish. If they finish 10th in that league next year, I'd be pumped. That would be good to me.
Blaine Fowler, Uncle B, is on BYU Sports Nation, dual threat analyst for football and basketball. He's discussed both already. Pro Day happens on Friday, Blaine, and a number of BYU guys, well, all of them, frankly, are working to raise stock and raise some eyebrows and increase interest in their own individual football profiles. Who has the most to gain and lose by competing at Friday's Pro Day?
This is an interesting thing. I was thinking about this just the other day. I think Jaron Hall, and that's crazy to say because he was in the NFL Combine, but remember, he hurt that ankle in the Senior Bowl workouts and was having a really, really good week. And then he couldn't fully compete because that ankle was still sore, so he couldn't run and do some of those things. But the reason I think a quarterback has a chance when you've got coaches and scouts that are right there face to face that can put him through a workout and say, hey, you know what? Now this just isn't the NFL combine. I want to see you make this throw because this is the throw we make in our offense. I want to see you roll this way and make that throw. And Zach Wilson was already being talked about as a first-round draft pick, but I think his pro day at BYU put him in he's the second pick story. Now, that's not going to be the case for Jerry's not going to be the second pick, but I feel like he could actually move up significantly with a great pro day. Probably more than anybody else if people see what they want to see. And conversely, if he doesn't do well, then people may go, oh, now that I have eyes on him, he's going to slide down a little bit. So maybe that seems like the obvious one to you guys, because everybody else I think is just jockeying to move up a little bit. I think he can make the biggest move up or down of anybody in the BYU pro day setting. As these guys are there with eyes on him, getting to work him out individually.
Blaine, great stuff. We appreciate the time as always. Blue goggles unite, or reading glasses unite, if you will.
There we go.
Those aren't the same.
Do I look any smarter or just as dumb as always?
No,
Yeah, I think you look smart.
You look very astute, my friend.
Okay. I'm going to wear them more, except for I can't step off a curb with these on because it seems like it's 10 feet up in the air.
Watch out, Ned Ryerson.
Now go wave at Bambi 5 miles away on the mountain.
Oh, I love the Ned
Bambi's
Ryerson.
dead.
Ned Ryerson? Did you actually do a Ned Ryerson,
Yes.
obscure,
Watch
am I right or am I right? Am I right? Am I right? Am I
Watch
right
that
or am I
first
right?
step. It's a doozy.
You never can have too much insurance. Am I right or am I right?
Blaine, thanks for the time.
You guys.